Good morning, Ann. How are you doing?
Morning, Patrick. So which answer do you want? Do you want the real answer, or do you just want my casual "I'm doing all right" answer?
See, I think the usually the casual one, but during these crazy times, I think it's okay to be as honest as possible. So, how are you really doing?
I'm doing all right. I've been better for sure. It's
Yeah,
so interesting. I'm used to people saying, "How are you?" "Oh, I'm all right. How are you?" Kind of casual, but now people are asking me that, and I don't feel all right all the time. So I'm just like, you
yeah,
know what? I'm still alive. I'm still healthy. So I guess I'm doing all right, but I've been better.
yeah, yeah. No, and I'm really happy that you're honest about that because I think it's important, especially for us as leaders in the church, to still be vulnerable with our congregation. That this is hard for y'all and it's hard for us, and we're just
hmm
thankful that I'm thankful I have friends like you and coworkers like you as well that we can be honest with one another and try to figure this out. Well, before we get going, why don't you tell everyone who you are? I assume they know you, what your title is, and how they can get in touch with you if they need you.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Ann, and people call me Ann Owens, Ann Henderson, all three, Ann Henderson Owens. I respond to all of them. The reason I go by all three of my names professionally is because most people know me as Ann Henderson, and so I feel like it's easier for to just add the Owens at the
Add the
end.
Owens.
Yeah, yeah. But I work at Central. I'm the director of Children and Family Ministries. I've been here for about 2 years in that position. And then my email address is on the website, but I'm also on Facebook too. So either of those work. I'm on Instagram. It's usually just pictures of my kids. So if anyone wants to always see pictures of my child, then follow me on Instagram.
Oh, and he's a really cute kid, so you should definitely do
He is.
that.
I agree.
And we're doing this now because Logan's is napping. So
Yes, I put him
we're gonna do it
down
as
and then jumped on the call.
so we're gonna do it as quick as possible, and I'll be as quiet as possible as to not wake up the baby because I've been
Perfect.
known to do that with my loud voice at the office, and I'm sorry. Well, you and I were both at church on Sunday. We were kind of doing things there. I don't know if people know that, but we were there on Sunday. And so Rob gave a sermon about Paul, and it was about canceled travel plans. It was at the beginning, Rob is talking, and Rob really loves the book of Romans because in Rob's eyes, Paul really brings us up to the theological and philosophical heights of Christianity in that work, and really kind of gets in deep to all the nitty gritty of our entire belief system. But that's not what we talked about at all. Instead, we talked about Paul's interrupted travel plans to Spain. Paul always wanted to go to Spain. He was a traveling evangelist. He was carrying the good news everywhere he went, and Spain was where he had his eyes set, but he never made it there. Instead, he got imprisoned in Rome. And so Rob makes the point that, normally you might overlook this passage and etc., but we are in a time of interruption. And so Paul's travel was interrupted. And for many of us, many of our plans have been interrupted. And Rob was careful, and we should be careful to say, for some people, this crisis has been more than just an interruption. It's been the loss of life. It's been the loss of a loved one, and that is really sad and devastating. And that is a grief that luckily you and I don't know, and hopefully we will not know. But I do want to be very careful, just like Rob was, to say that for some people this is more than an interruption, and that is very devastating. We hold those families in our prayers. But I did want to ask you, what are some interruptions, or tell me about the interruptions that you're experiencing? Paul's travel plans were interrupted. What's being interrupted for you during this time?
Yeah, so what I really appreciate about kind of like what you said and how careful Rob was with his sermon is that we acknowledge the people who are really struggling, who have lost loved ones to this virus. And yet I've been feeling guilty for struggling. Both my husband and I still work. We're home with our kid all the time, but I've been feeling really guilty for struggling emotionally, mentally.
Yeah.
And it was just a really perfectly timed sermon, I felt like, for Rob
Yeah.
to say, it's okay that you are not okay, you know?
Yeah.
And so for me, like, I love the spring festival at church. Like, I get so excited for it every year. I mean, it's just a fellowship after church where we have chicken, and I think there's hot dogs too for the kiddos, and we do face painting, we do a photo booth and a bouncy house, and that just didn't get to happen this year. And
Yeah.
I was really bummed because I look forward to moments where we can have fellowship at Central, just because with us being such a large church, it's kind of hard to do that. So it's a one time a year I know that we'll get to have fellowship, and that didn't get to happen. So that was something I was really looking forward to, that kind of relayed perfectly to the sermon, and also just in general being closer to family and friends. Like, my husband and I just moved back from Colorado 2 years ago, not even.
Yeah.
And so we are finally in this place where we're less than a day's drive, a few hours drive from friends and family and all sorts of people that we love and care about. And now we can't go see them.
Yeah.
And that's just been kind of hard, because we moved back here so that we could be closer to them a little bit. And it's just been hard. Like, I miss my people.
Yeah. And I'm so happy that you said that, because I'm right there with you. And it is such an interesting time, especially when I think about the fall festival. You know, we go pick up the bags to close down Church Street, and everyone's outside under the big trees. And that's just something that that really does feel like we make the turn towards spring. You know, Rob said many of us in January were looking to make that turn, you know, and we see the leaves coming back. And for me, that kind of signals the turn for our church. You know, we're past Easter, we're moving forward into spring, into new life. And so, yeah, I totally understand that. And that is a really big interruption. And so I wanted that kind of leads me into my second question for you, Anne, which is, you know, when Rob was describing Paul in the prison cell, he said he didn't just take a nail and scratch another day into the wall. He didn't just get by. When we got on, you know, we talked about people just saying, "Oh, I'm fine and I'm okay." And a lot of times now you'll just hear people say, "Oh, I'm just getting through it," or "I'm just enduring this." And that can be really easy to do, to say, you know, I'm going to hunker down and wait to get through this. But Rob said, you know, Paul didn't just scratch things into the wall. He took a quill pen and began to write. You know, he, instead of enduring this time, he employed this time. So what are some ways that you are not just enduring this time, but trying to employ this time, trying to think creatively or innovatively during this?
Yeah, it's been hard. So, I mean, at first, I think holding on to that sense of normalcy was what I tried,
Mm-hmm.
you know, trying to be as normal. Let's be real here, that we don't have no one has the same definition of normal, but as normal as we could be. And so I was trying to keep the children's sermons pretty similar, but it's hard to do repeat after me prayers when the kids aren't there to repeat after me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just not the same. So there was a lot of innovation that had to be done. And one of the things that I've been working with my parents with for children's ministry in particular is Vacation Bible School. You know, what is that going to look like, considering the fact that we should not have 75 kids at least in the fellowship hall along with the other adults together? Like, how do we still offer Vacation Bible School for these families and still do it in a way that keeps everyone safe and healthy? And so we're looking into doing Vacation Bible School in a box, so where families will come and pick up their box for their kid. And normally we do a school supply drive with Emma Elementary School, and so to get a box is $5. And so the $5 registration fee goes directly towards Emma Elementary School.
That's awesome.
And then once we know what their need is, we can use that money to help them, because we have no idea what school's going to look like in the fall. So, you know, we can't just do what we normally do. We can't just buy a bunch of pencils that might sit in a storage supply closet for the better half of the year that don't get used. I mean, we're trying to be like, what can we do to help people in a way that they actually need it, and not just being like, well, here's what I want to do for you, and you may not need that. So working out ways like that. What I recently actually just did is I mailed seed packets out to a lot of our families.
Yeah.
So people who emailed me and said that they wanted some, and a few other families who've been attending our online video calls that I've been doing with the kids. And so what we're going to do is we're going to plant seeds together online. So they're going to be at their houses on their video call, and then I'm going to kind of show them here at my house how to plant a seed in your own yard, which we would have done at church, and then they would have gotten to take it home. And so basically trying to do the same thing almost, but having to be really innovative with doing it online.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I wanted to just say, it's been really great to see you doing all these different things. I always know that there's going to be a video for our kids on the YouTube or somewhere else, and I know that you're always sending out content, but also you're leading not just for our kids, but for the whole congregation by making the videos around communion and stuff, and that's been really impactful. I know for people out there to watch those videos, to set up their own altars, and I know now actually that our district is going to be taking that video and passing it out. So I just wanted to, commend you for the ways that you are leading not just our church and our children, but, our whole church and the district, because I think that that's really inspiring, and really, it points to, we're not just going to sit down and kind of get through this, but instead try to be the leaders at our own church and in our community, and so I'm, just wanted to say thank you for that. And that it is not gone unnoticed by everyone. So yeah,
I appreciate that a lot. I feel like you said something that kind of sparked something in my brain. My job title is Director of Children and Families, not just children. And so I've been really trying to live into that and families. Like, how can I help families out in this time too? So I do appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, I always think when you make a video, I'm like, that's a perfect amount of time to put it on, and then someone can go do something in the house if they had to. I always think like, is this a brief way for someone to go make lunch real quick while they watch this video, so that there's like the child is focused and learning, and the parent has time to do that, or are they watching with them and growing too? Like, it's just cool because in so many ways you're helping. And with that, I kind of leads me into my next question, which, Rob talked about co-creation with God. And that, God is always creating and recreating. And so one of the things that we are called to is to co-create, to live right alongside God, to kind of join into that stream of the Holy Spirit that's moving, and try to find new ways that we can continue to create with God. And Rob uses the phrase, we can turn a dale of trouble, like a mountain of trouble, into a door of hope. What are some ways that you see that happening at Central right now? And what are some ways that we can co-create with God during this time?
Yeah, well, that's a loaded question, I mean, there's a lot to that question. And I don't think there's a basic answer. I actually wrote that down. How do we co-create with God? Because I feel like that's a good question I would like to personally meditate on this week, because I don't actually know right now how I can co-create with God. And I can't tell you how you can co-create with God, but I think Rob did a beautiful job illustrating the story in Scotland of the restaurant that was about to open. And the people were so jubilant, and they took the soda cans and they shook them and they got all over the wall, but not realizing that it would stain it so permanently. And they were so devastated. And then somebody came in and made that stain into a piece of art. And I feel like that story just relates to me, where I feel like, my life might be a stain right now, but God's taking that and making it into a piece of art, whether or not I recognize it or not. I'm a part of, as I know you are too, a mentoring group for the Western North Carolina Conference, for us being in the ordination process. So my mentor group met this past week, and our mentor leader, Lauren Salata, actually said something that just really spoke with me, kind of her reflection on Easter. And she kind of talked about that Easter comes whether we're ready or not. I mean, Jesus doesn't show up when we're ready. Jesus is already there. And so I think in this moment, it's important to remember that even if we don't feel the presence of God, God is still co-creating with us, and that even if we're in a place where we just kind of feel like a stain, God is still turning us into a beautiful masterpiece. So whatever that looks like, I mean, I don't know what that looks like for everyone else. We all have different talents and different gifts. And so, you know, for me, it just kind of feels like I'm able to co-create with God in the videos I do for the children. Yeah. Being able to have time to write. I've been writing a little bit more, and I wrote down some Easter reflections myself, and that was just really helpful for me to kind of process the way that I'm feeling. And maybe in a few months, those will spark into some sort of, you know, anything. But right now, it's just me. And so I do really, I do think that question is not one that can be answered definitively, because we all answer it differently. We all co-create with God differently, and we're all currently co-creating with God, whether we know it or not. So
yeah, well, that's perfect. And one of the things that you and I had talked about is one of the things that Rob said in his sermon, which was the story of the people of God is a story of people that come with what they have, whether they think it's enough, whether they think it's not enough. But that they bring that anyway. They have the courage to say, you know, here, take this, and they are always met with love and surprise at how much blessing comes back to them. You know, Rob mentioned the feeding the 5,000, and he told that story that Kierkegaard wrote about the woman that makes the cloth for the altar, and she never feels like it's finished, and it really wasn't finished until she offered it to God and got that blessing. And I think you are so right to say, you know, we don't really know how to co-create right now, but we are open. We're still yearning to figure it out. And so we're bringing, you know, right now, I don't know, I'm kind of a mess. I'm kind of a stain, but I'm bringing that, and I'm hoping that God will transform that into something beautiful. And so, yeah, I'm really, really thankful. I'm also thankful we had the time to talk today. I know that you have some things to get together, and so do I, before we have staff meeting. But I just wanted to say thanks for taking the time to do this, and also just for your honesty, and also just your excitement still, you know, that, you know, it's really easy to be discouraged. And I know that you and I both feel that, but it's also really inspiring to see that you're not letting that get you down, that you want to continue to take this time and to grow not only the faith of our children, but the faith of our families, so that we can really be united at Central and kind of be that community for Christ at the center of the city of Asheville. And so I'm really thankful for that, Ann, and for your friendship.
Yeah, thanks. And like you said, you know, it comes one day at a time. And I think that's okay. I think it's important to say that when you have a bad day, that it's fine. You know, like yesterday was just one of those days for me where it was okay, wasn't great, wasn't terrible, but I didn't count it off. I still tried to live into the day the best that I could and focus on the things that would help me to feel hopeful for tomorrow. Yeah.
That's awesome.
You know, interestingly, I know that we're wrapping up, and we're starting to kind of tie our loose ends together. But as we're talking recently, I've been really reflecting on this search for hope. So one of the books that I read for the kids in the beginning was Little Mole Searches for Hope. And it's about a mole who lives underground, who is, you know, he can't come out of his burrow until spring because it's just too cold. And so he's talking with his mom, like, where do I find hope? And she has him imagine what a world would be like with flowers. And she's like, that's coming. And then she has him imagine, so she has him use his imagination to help him to be hopeful, to know that we're in this season of uncertainty, but that we still can find hope in different places. And so I know that I think we're all searching for hope. I think we're all searching for something right now. And I think it's okay if you don't know what that is. I think it's okay if you don't know, like, hey, I am just feeling really terrible right now, and I don't feel like I'm co-creating with God. I don't feel hopeful. I don't feel this. And that's okay, because God's still there. The hope is still there. The people are still there. And I think we just need to take it one step at a time, and maybe practice what Little Mole does when you're having a moment of just really intense sadness or struggle or something, just close your eyes and open up your mind to imagine the ways that you can find hope.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ann. I'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.